All right, so the first order of business, do we have our credentials report ready? So Emily Sylvette, would you come up and deliver the Credentials Committee report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Emily Sylvette, I'm the chair of the Credentials Committee. The Credentials Committee is concerned with ensuring that delegates are eligible to vote and of tracking how many voters there are at any given time at our convention. We use an online, real-time database developed by Ben Backrack of Michigan to receive delegate lists from states and to credential folks at the convention. The committee met yesterday at 1 p.m. to approve credentialing the list of 823 names of delegates and alternates already submitted by states as of 1 p.m. Wednesday. We also gave provisional approval to 34 rejected and 12 pending names, allowing credentialing as long as missing information such as mailing address or proof of membership could be provided. The committee then deliberated on the one state that submitted 2 separate delegation lists, Oregon. Per Robert's rules, in such contested cases, if the Credentials Committee, upon hearing the facts, believes the contest is not justified, it may enter the names of the side whose claim it finds legitimate. In this case, the Credentials Committee voted 4-3, with 1 abstention, to seat the Reeves group from Oregon. The committee found them to be operating under the LP of Oregon bylaws properly adopted in convention by the Oregon membership in 2009. The committee was also encouraged by the commitment of the Reeves group to seat all members of the other group, that is the Wagner group, in the Oregon delegation. As of now, 2 members of the Wagner group have taken advantage of that offer, and their names are included in the following roll. As of 8:45 this morning, there are 299 delegates and 5 alternates who have received their credentials and are entitled to vote. That means 122 for a quorum, 153 for a majority, 203 for 2/3, and 266 for 7/8. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Credentials Committee, I move the roll of delegates hereby submitted be the official roll of the voting members of this convention.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Which microphone is that?
I think it's 7.
Okay, and by the way, when you go to the microphone, please identify yourself and the state you come from.
Nicholas Sarwark, State of Colorado. I rise to object to the Credentials Committee report, specifically to the seating of the Reeves faction. I have the honor of serving on this party's Judicial Committee. And this party's Judicial Committee took up the issue of whether or not the Reeves group or the Wagner group was or was not the recognized affiliate in Oregon. The Judicial Committee decided by a 4-3 vote that at present the Wagner group is the recognized affiliate in the state of Oregon and will remain the recognized affiliate unless and until the LNC votes to disaffiliate them. That vote has never occurred, and at this time the Wagner group is the recognized affiliate in Oregon. If you go to the National Party website and you click the LP of Oregon, you go to the Wagner group. Moreover, the Secretary of State of Oregon currently recognizes the Wagner group as the Libertarian Party of Oregon. Now that's contested and there's a lawsuit. That lawsuit will not be decided before this election. I'm a lawyer and I can tell you that lawsuit ain't going to be done this year.
Nick, actually, if I can interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
We really actually need a motion on the floor.
Right.
And then you can speak to the motion.
I apologize. I move to seat the Wagner delegation list as submitted and not seat the Reeves list as submitted.
Is there a second to that? It's been moved in second.
Sorry about that. So the Wagner group is recognized by the National Party. The Wagner group is recognized by the Judicial Committee of the National Party. The Wagner group is recognized by the Oregon Secretary of State. Now, there's a lot of talk and back and forth, and you all have received stuff from both sides about the unclean hands on both sides of the Oregon dispute. And I won't argue that. There are unclean hands on both sides. But from pure practical politics, in 2 days we are going to nominate a presidential ticket. And guess which group has ballot access in the state of Oregon? The Wagner group. The Wagner group is the one that's going to submit our ticket to the Secretary of State. They're the ones that should be seated as delegates. The Reeves Group at present is not recognized by anybody. They are not recognized by the Oregon Secretary of State. They are not recognized as our affiliate by the Judicial Committee. They are not recognized as our affiliate by the National Committee. And so it was improper for the Credentials Committee to seat the Reeves Group. It is a contested seating, and under Robert's rules should not have been reported out of Credentials Committee. It should have been subject to a floor debate, and that's why I rise to speak and I ask you, for the sake of our party, for the sake of our ballot access, seat the Wagner Group. The Reeves Group will be seated in other delegations. There are delegations that are open for whichever group in Oregon doesn't get seated as the Oregon delegation. There are plenty of spots. So it's not like they won't be delegates, but as a show of good faith and respect for this party, for the decisions of your Judicial Committee and respect for ballot access for our presidential ticket, seat the Wagner Group.
By the way, please try to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Somebody to speak in opposition. Mr. Carlin?
Mr. Chair, I rise in opposition to the motion. The Credentials Committee did the right thing. The Credentials Committee did the libertarian thing. I ask M. Carlin, New York. I ask all of you to imagine how you would feel if 5 members of the LNC were to vote 5-4 to throw out the National Party bylaws that you adopted here in convention, to proclaim new bylaws disenfranchising you as members of the Libertarian Party, eliminating the Judicial Committee so that their illegal acts couldn't be appealed, throwing out the membership pledge where we certify that we oppose the initiation of force, canceling future conventions, and extending their own terms of office. How would you feel if the National Committee did this to you? Well, this is exactly what Wes Wagner and 4 of his friends did in Oregon. They threw out the bylaws adopted by the members of the Libertarian Party of Oregon in convention. The 5 of them proclaimed new bylaws, fraudulently submitted them to the Secretary of State, eliminated the Judicial Committee, canceled future conventions, disenfranchised the existing members, and extended their own terms of office. That's called a coup. It's illegal, and I also dispute the facts given by Mr. Sarwark. The Libertarian National Committee voted 12-5 to recognize that the Reeves Group are the lawful officers of the Libertarian Party of Oregon. That decision stands. The Judicial Committee acted outside of our bylaws. That question was not among the enumerated powers. I think most of you are familiar with the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and you understand enumerated powers. There's a list in our bylaws of questions that the Judicial Committee can decide. This was not among them. So I urge you to vote against the motion. Thank you very much.
Somebody speak in favor of the motion? Way in the back there?
I'd like to speak against the motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak in favor.
Somebody speak in favor.
Mr. Chair?
Well, I'm sorry, I recognize this microphone first, but
My name is Corey Gray. I'm from Oregon. I'm 25 years old and I recently left the military after 6 years of service, at which time I decided Sorry. That better? All right. My name's Corey Gray. I'm from Oregon. I'm 25 years old and I'm recently honorably discharged from the Marine Corps after 6 years of service. At which point I decided I wanted to be involved in our political process to make this country the way it's supposed to be, inform the Constitution which I swore to defend and uphold. at which point I became a Libertarian lifetime member, and I went to the lp.org website to get involved in my home state of Oregon. As previously stated, that website does identify the Wes Wagner Group as the state representative for the National Party. So I, in good faith, went to my national membership site, went to the state party, clicked on the Get Involved link, and I got involved. This group, the Wagner Group, is the active faction. I haven't been able to find the Burke faction until I came here. When I joined the Wagner faction, I involved in the site, I went to the meetings, I, in good faith, went through the delegate process so I can come here and be involved and promote liberty. This fall, I start my college education. And it's my goal to start a student group in Oregon, which is currently lacking. I don't know if you've been watching the news, but everywhere Ron Paul goes, he's pulling 4,000, 6,000 students my age. These are thousands of people my age who are interested in liberty, who are hungry for libertarian values, and these people are who are going to take this country and this party into the future. I want to be a message to my peers saying the Libertarian Party is here to win elections, the Libertarian Party here is to promote liberty and individual responsibility, and based on what happens at this convention is going to be how I'm going to address my peers. Either I can look at them in the eye and say, yes, we are here to win elections, yes, we are here to do good things, or I can go back and say, actually, from what I saw, it was a distinct lack of professionalism. It was nothing but infighting and backbiting, and as far as I can tell, the Libertarian Party is more concerned with personal power than it is with promoting liberty in the United States.
Mr. Weiner?
I'm speaking against the proposed amendment. My name is Daniel Weiner from California. I'm a member of the Libertarian National Committee. When this issue first came up, and it was a difficult issue, we tried very hard to resolve matters between the two factions. I tried hard to come up with a compromise, unsuccessfully, unfortunately, but at the end of the day, the Libertarian National Committee decided that it had to recognize the group that was following the bylaws, the legitimate bylaws of the Libertarian Party of Oregon. That decision was subsequently appealed to the Judicial Committee, and the Judicial Committee voted 4-3 to overturn that decision. Now, normally, we would give a lot of credence to a Judicial Committee decision. In this case, unfortunately, that decision was badly tainted by the failure of one of the members, who was the deciding vote, to recuse himself. Mary Ruart, who was a member of the National Committee, was on the side of the Wagner faction, and Lee Reitz, who is a member of the Judicial Committee and who lives with Mary, voted in favor of the Wagner faction. He was the deciding vote. He should have recused himself, and the Libertarian National Committee subsequently voted by a supermajority to express its opposition, largely as a result of that fact. Let me make clear, this wasn't just a case of two people who lived together having to share the same views. This was a case where Mary Ruart submitted a brief to the Judicial Committee on behalf of the Wagner faction, and then she was the main participant, one of the main participants in the oral arguments during the teleconference supporting the Wagner faction and arguing on its behalf. Think of it this way.
Mr. Weiner, your time is up. It's a request for information, but just hold on a second. My parliamentarian, by the way, is Bill White. I should have introduced him earlier. Bill White is a longtime member of the National Association of Parliamentarians and was one of the founding members of the California Libertarian Party, and in fact was the very first partisan candidate after the Libertarian Party was ballot qualified in California. Thank you, Bill, for sitting in. Microphone 7, point of information.
Joe Johnson, Colorado. It's been said that only one group in this dispute has the legal authority to place our presidential candidate on the ballot in Oregon. Number one, is this true? If it is true, which group? And if so, why?
Alicia Madsen also confirms what I've talked to Stephen Trout, the Oregon Secretary of State's office, and the Wagner Group is the group that the Secretary of State recognizes. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Somebody to speak in favor. I don't know, which microphone is this over here?
Microphone 4.
Thank you. Please identify yourself.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect to my esteemed
Please identify yourself and the state you come from.
I'm sorry, Alan Hyatt, California. Mr. Chair, with all due respect to the National Committee and my esteemed colleague, Mr. Weiner, these arguments have all been heard before. We have to ask ourselves what we have a judicial committee for. Our judicial committee is elected by delegations at convention to resolve just these types of issues, and they have done so. And they have recognized the Wagner faction. There are certainly several things, there are certainly several mistakes, I would say, that have been made, and several things that could have been done better. However, this is a very complicated issue, and it's not as cut and dried as some people are making it out. It was not clear that there was an easy way to resolve the situation in Oregon, and these arguments have all been made before the Judicial Committee, and the Judicial Committee has made its decision. Now, as a Libertarian Party, as the party of principle, we need to distinguish ourselves. We need to make a brand identification that distinguishes ourselves between the principles that we adhere to and the way we do business and the way the Republicans and Democrats conduct their business. We've all seen throughout this campaign, we've all seen examples of the way that the Republican Party is trying to stifle the libertarian element within its own party by using political maneuvering and shenanigans. This is the Libertarian Party, the party of principle. If we can't set an example of how to conduct our business, how to properly conduct our business to follow the wishes of the membership, and not a few who are trying to achieve their goals and impose their will of the majority through political maneuvering. If we can't set that example, then we have no business asking the American public for their votes. Our Judicial Committee has ruled. We need to follow the Judicial Committee because that's what they're there for, to resolve exactly these types of decisions. I appreciate the work that the Reeves faction has put in and everyone else has put in, but the fact is our Judicial Committee has decided that the Wagner faction is the one that's legitimate, and that's what we need to recognize as a Libertarian Party. And if we don't set the example, then we should disband right now.
Are there any further substantial issues that need to be discussed here? Okay, somebody to speak in opposition to the amendment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Richard Burke. I'm from Oregon. And I agree with some of the things that the gentleman just said. We are a party of principle. If we cannot follow our own rules, how can we expect that the Americans will trust us to abide by and defend the Constitution of the United States? But what we have to remember here is that the Judicial Committee, unlike that in most states, is not all-powerful. They have limitations. They attempted to decide a question that was not listed, and the Judicial Committee does not have the power to determine who the leaders of the state affiliates are. This is what the LNC agreed with by a 12-5 vote. Now, I hope that if the Wagner faction is still recognized by the Secretary of State, that they will not try to blackmail this convention by suggesting they would not submit the name of who our nominee is. We certainly will not do that. And one thing to remember about the Secretary of State's recognition of the Wagner Group, because of the Supreme Court decision, as election officials, they are barred from interfering or getting involved with internal party politics. So their policy isn't that the Wagner faction is legitimate. Their policy is that they will only change the officer list if ordered to do so by the outgoing state chair, Wes Wagner, who will not step down, or a judge. And that's it. They did not take a position on who is right or wrong in this. That is your decision. But I'll tell you, there is always room for compromise. And the Rees Group has compromised. We have said that we will fill our delegation, because we have some vacancies, with members of the Wagner list. We're trying to work together here. And 2 people have taken advantage of it. The others have spurned it, and are trying to unseat us without making any equivalent gesture. This isn't a state issue. We should all be united to deal with the issues that face our nation at this convention. So, I'll make people happy to know that I'm going to stop talking now. But I ask you to reject this amendment. We will fix this internally. And I thank you very much for your attention.
All right, before we get onto that, I heard the cell phone go off, so could people please mute their cell phones? Thank you very much. Pardon? Step to the microphone, please, and identify yourself.
I have a point of parliamentary inquiry. This is Will McVeigh from Delaware. I'm not sure I understand what exactly the consequences of either the amendment or the original report would be. As I understand it, there's plenty of room within the open delegate slots to seat everybody. And why we're sitting here spending so much time arguing over this, I really don't know. So, Mr. Chair, I call the question.
Did you call the question?
Yes, sir, call the question.
Okay, the question has been called. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing debate, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Aye. The ayes have it. Could we have the restating of the motion?
You want me to do it?
Yes, please.
Microphone 7, Nick Sarwark from Colorado. The motion is to object to the Credentials Committee report as presented and to seat the Wagner delegation as the delegation from Oregon rather than the Reeves delegation.
Everybody understand that? This requires a majority of the delegation to modify the committee's report. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Doesn't sound like a majority, but I'm a little concerned that some places were a little higher than others. Could I have a standing vote for those in favor of the motion? Please stand. Pardon? We're already voting on the motion. You should pay attention. Okay, please be seated. All those in opposition, please stand. Motion fails. All right, we're back to the committee's report. There needs to be... Chairman. Okay, microphone 4. Identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeff Weston. I'm from Oregon. During a contested vote such as this, delegates of the contested factions cannot vote, and yet they did.
It's my understanding people on the floor here should have already been credentialed. Is that not the case?
Point of order.
I
So,
Essentially what you're saying is people who were not credentialed are voting, is that correct?
No, people who are in either contested faction cannot vote. So those that were already seated from Oregon and those in the Wagner faction cannot vote either.
I've been advised by parliamentarian that you are correct, so we will have a re-voting, and those people in Oregon, please do not vote, do not stand, do not sit, etc. Lie on the floor. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please stand.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
We're in the middle of a vote. Please wait. All right. Be seated. All those opposed, please stand. The motion clearly fails. Was there a point of order?
Forget it.
Are there any other amendments to the Credentials Committee report?
Mr. Chairman,
Which microphone? Is that you, Dean? Oh, apparently there's no number, but microphone in the back.
Mr. Chairman, George Phillies, Massachusetts. The body has not had a chance to examine the full list of delegates. I don't insist we do so before the vote, though I believe there's an issue with the Massachusetts list. Arthur Torrey tried to show up last night and was told he was not a delegate, and I'm sure he was on the list. So I request, maybe this doesn't have to be a motion, that each delegation have an opportunity. This is Mr. Torrey, who was told he is still not a delegate, which he very certainly is. And I therefore ask that Mr. Torrey be added to the list and that all delegations get a chance to examine the report to be sure that everyone who should be on it is on it and everyone who should not be on it is not on it.
George, if you want to add in, you need to make a motion.
I move to add Arthur Torrey to the delegation. He was submitted with the original list. That's the motion.
Has this been brought to the attention of the Credentials Committee?
Mr. Torrey says it was.
Emily, so that says no. So it sounds like he better address himself to the Credentials Committee. Or do you want to make a motion?
I made a motion.
Okay, was there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hold on.
What is information?
The Credentials Committee would like to request the information about the eligibility of the delegate, potential delegate.
He's a member of a long-time member of our state party. He was on the list that was submitted. There should be a total of 9 Massachusetts delegates.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the procedure for adding people to the delegation list. Each state was given an opportunity to assign either the delegation chair, the state chair, or a secretary of their state party, and username, login, and password so that they could enter their delegates into the database. Mr. Torrey's name was not entered into the database, as far as I understand from what you're saying, Mr. Phillies. If that's not the case, then we can enter him and check his eligibility, and then we will be able to credential him if he's found eligible. Does that help?
Point of information.
Brian?
Brian Holtz from California. Is this the last chance for people to be credentialed? My understanding is that it can happen throughout the process, and so as long as we don't think there's anyone on the list who needs to be taken off, I think people can be added as the Credential Committee sees fit throughout the process, so we should just get going.
At the opening of each session, you'll get a report from the Credentials Committee as people arrive or leave. By the way, if you do plan to leave before the close of the convention on Sunday, please notify the Credentials Committee so we can help maintain a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to speak in favor of my motion.
Mr. Phillies?
Very briefly, we do not know what happened the body has not actually seen the credentials report as opposed to the summary, so we do not actually know the names of the delegates on whom we are voting. Mr. Torrey was submitted because I took care of that. I have no idea what happened to it thereafter. But Mr. Torrey is here and should be entitled to vote.
May I clarify something for everybody who is a delegation chair or a delegate or in a delegation? Anyone who wants to know who's on their delegate list or any other delegate list may go into the credentialing database and look. Everybody has the magic slippers to click their heels and look. And the list that was submitted was not in the database as required. I'm very happy to add Mr. Torres if he turns out to be eligible, and I don't see this as a big problem.
I see it as a problem. I think the LNC is taking and making an effort to exclude people who it knows is not in favor of having the Gang of 10 rubber stamp. My name was properly submitted. I was elected as a delegate at our state convention. I do not understand why I have been excluded from our delegation and not permitted to be a delegate, and I do not think that I should be forced to wait until the next credentialing committee report for you to fix your screw-up.
Please, let's keep the comments civil.
Microphone 6, Jim Folder, Berkeley, Michigan. I call the question.
Question will be called. Is there any opposition to moving to a vote? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of seating, please restate the potential delegate's name.
Arthur Torrey of North Billerica.
All those in favor of seating Arthur Torrey, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Unless there's further motions to amend.
There is.
Okay. Microphone 7.
Nick Sauer, Colorado. I'm back. I move to amend the Credentials Committee report to allow the credentialing and seating of any delegate who has been submitted by a state affiliate, who has been selected by that affiliate, regardless of whether or not they paid the floor fee. Can I speak to my motion, Mr. Chair?
Speak to your... out of order. I'm going to rule that out of order. And the reason I'm going to rule it out of order is that the JC has ruled that to be a delegate, one must be credentialed and registered. And registration includes paying the registration fee. Thus, this is a settled matter.
Mr. Chair, point of personal privilege.
Do you know what a point of personal privilege really is?
I do.
Okay. Somebody smoking around you? That's a point of personal privilege.
Well, there's been a motion to appeal the ruling of the chair, and it's been seconded.
Okay. Well, but I wanted to state my reasons for ruling it out of order. There has been a ruling of the appealing of the chair.
Hi, I'm Doug Shell from North Carolina.
Please wait to be recognized. I wanted to inquire if that is a debate on motion. Which microphone? 4? Or the end one down there?
Hello, Doug Shell from North Carolina, delegate from North Carolina. It seems to me the safest way to make sure that those who vote on this motion, the main motion, are actual delegates, is to poll the state chair that's here, who knows who is or is not a delegate. And just go through the states, and North Carolina will say so many people for the motion and so many people against it. You know then that they are delegates, unless your state chairs are not honest people. And I think that every state chair in this room is an honest person. So I would move that we poll it by state chair, and he will report just as we will be on any other vote. Okay?
Did you make a motion?
Motion is to, on this original motion, I want to submit, I think that the best and safest way for us to go away here feeling that a fair vote has been taken is to have the vote, you call the states, and the state chair will report the votes of the official delegates from that state. That is the safest way, and if people want to go and go against their vote, so be it. But there won't be any more questions about who should be a delegate, who can vote. Just go to the state chairs, and that's my move, not my motion.
Okay, I believe that's out of order. What we're dealing with is appealing to the ruling of the chair. We need to deal with that issue before going to any other issue.
Request for information.
Pardon?
Request for information.
Mr. Lieberman?
Yes, Scott Lieberman from California. This body has not actually seated any delegates yet, is that correct?
Correct. That's what we're trying to do. All right, if there's no further...
there is. I challenge the ruling of the chair. Jim Dunsing from Nevada, delegate from Michigan. I challenge the ruling because the motion is to seat these people, and the idea that the Judicial Committee has more say than all the delegates assembled is simply nonsensical.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of upholding the ruling of the chair, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. The ruling of the chair is upheld. We're back to the main motion, which is the acceptance of the Credentials Committee. Okay, let's do a standing vote. All those in favor of upholding the ruling of the chair, stand. Please seated. All those to overrule the ruling of the chair, please stand. The ruling of the chair is upheld. You've not been recognized. We're back to the main motion, which is the acceptance of the Credentials Committee. If there are no further modifications, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the Credentials Committee report signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries.